Now, a while back we worked on this 288 GTO, and if you can remember, the paint was pretty bad, and what we did was we restored it, but it was kind of interesting because there was a lot of different panels with different heat absorption rates, so it made for an interesting detail to say the least. The interior was pretty good, but I got a lot of emails from you guys saying, hey, show me more, show me what you did in the beginning, how did you assess it, show me more polishing. So I'm gonna kind of do that with this video, but on something a little bit different. This here is a 1967 275 GTB4, and I'm sure a lot of the Ferrari aficionados are kind of going, wow, just like I am, because this thing is pretty cool. I've only seen it in real life probably 2 or 3 times, and now this is amazing that I get to work on it. What's interesting about this is I'll give you a little tour. It is a 4-cam, which is a little bit different, kind of the upgraded version. It's 300 horsepower, which was, of course, a very big deal in 1967. A little bit of a longer nose, so definitely Wikipedia this car because it's pretty cool. Now this year, or earlier this year, around January, February, one of these types of cars, it was a 65, I believe, sold for $1.87 million. So these cars are a bit more expensive than the 288, but nonetheless, lots of intricate things on here. So I want to take you through the steps of how I approach it, which is sort of the beginning part that I didn't put on film on this one. So I'm going to take you through and go through kind of what I do to assess and figure out how am I going to, it's not, everything is just not cookie cutter. It's what am I going to do? Do I take this off? Do I not? Do I measure? So we're going to go through all that bit. And then I have something pretty cool because a lot of you guys wanted to see what I do with my hands specifically, and we're kind of far away from the camera right now. I'm going to show you something that I call, that we sort of created called the detailer's eye, where I'm going to put a camera right here and you're going to see exactly what I'm doing with my hands, and you can kind of I think it's going to be a better way to teach and to learn. All right, so one of the first things you want to do is go around the car and assess it. Now, in the first Drive Clean episode, you saw me quickly walk around the car. Why? Because I would imagine most of you, if you're not pros, meaning you're not working on a car that's not yours on multiple basis, like every single day. If it's your car, you can walk around real quick and you kind of know the nuances. Oh, there's a rock chip here, there's there. But I like the idea of just quickly walking around and seeing if something weird had happened, like, oh man, there's a huge door ding or whatever, and you can kind of trace it back immediately and go, oh, maybe I can go back and find it, or whatever. It's a good way to keep track of your car. On something like this, I got to go through the whole thing because I haven't seen it until today. So right off the bat, I know this is going to sound a little goofy, but there's bugs all over the front of it and the windshield. So to me, I'm going in my mind, okay, great, this is one of my kind of guys. It's a driver. So, all right, this isn't, Concord, Pebble Beach, craziness. This guy drives it, which is, I think, is great. So already I'm sort of, you're kind of, I know it sounds a little goofy, but you're kind of acting like a detective here so that you can grab all this information and work on this car. And specifically, something like this is, twice, 3, 4, 5 times expensive as my house. So you want a little information before you start putting any compounds, any polishes, I mean, even any, washing it, you want to have all the facts. So it may sound a little goofy, but this is the steps that I'm doing. So use it, as much as you possibly can, and throw away the things that you think are not relevant to your car. But in this case, there's lots of bugs. I'm noticing around here there's a lot of gaps, and I'll bring the camera and you can see there's a hole inside the bottom of the light. So I guess as water travels in here, it can travel outside the car, drip down so it doesn't build up. But there's a lot of stuff in there, and I got to I'm going to debate whether taking these screws out and polishing the inside because it's a little dull. What I also like to do is, you see I got my pen and paper, is I'm basically taking notes on the car because I have what I call a detailer's notebook. I have everything, all the cars I've ever really worked on. I keep track of it, and if I have a question, I'm saying like, okay, what happened on that 288? It happens to be behind me, but imagine if I was in another spot and I said, oh, there was something about that 288 that was weird. Let me go back and look for it. So that's what I call a detailer's notebook. So I write down everything before I measure it. So I've already done that to try to make this a little bit quicker because this video is going to be long. I apologize. I'm going by and I'm actually looking at the paint like I normally do, and it's really not that bad. Again, I'll pull it in and I'll show you a picture of it. It's not great, but it's not as bad as a 288. The 288, had some serious issues in here. This one is kind of basically full of what I call, and I'm sure you guys are, I've heard it 1,000 times, what I call love marks. Meaning you love the car, you wipe it, you wash it. There's going to be these little swirls and little scratches. Not the end of the world. So already I'm saying to myself, okay, wow, for 67, you know, this is actually halfway decent paint, but I'm still investigating. So the next thing that I'm doing is I turn on my depth gauge here. So what you do is got a little cap on here. I'm making this a little longer because you guys wanted an explanation here. So I turn it on, and when you turn it on, you always want these things to be separated. You don't want them to be too close. It's kind of a little trick of opening it. I pull it off with my teeth because I'm lazy. All right, so I am going to measure this, and now I know that this is all material that can be measured. Remember on the 288 we couldn't because there was carbon fiber, this, and all this other crazy composites that didn't, my posi detector didn't pick it up. So I'm going to go right on. Right off the bat, I see 23 mils, 15, 20, 26, 17. All right, so what is that telling me? Right off the bat, that's telling me that there's all kinds of paint levels going on here. And it's not like, and normally I'll go outside and I'll measure the Cayenne or whatever outside. And there'll be 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, you know, and it'll be 4, 5, and then 4, 6, and then 6 and 3. It kind of will be close. Right now I'm seeing all over the map, and again, I've done the rest of the car, and I'm just doing this little section here to show you an example. It's kind of all over the place. So, okay, as a detective, I'm going, something weird's going on. 1967, the paint kind of looks okay, which is weird to me. 67, you would imagine it have, or somebody had detailed it, but as I'm going through this car, the interior, I'll show you, but I can't show you the smell. It smells like a smoker in there, and it's really not that as good as I'd like it to be. So I have a lot of work, and I brought my steamer, so we're going to do some steam stuff in there as well. But so all these things are basically coming in my mind, and I'm saying, again, 67, the paint is looking halfway decent, and my paint depth gauge is kind of all over the place, meaning it's not normal. So I'm going to grab the camera right now and show you another car where it is normal, and we can compare. All right, so I'm trying to prove a point by talking about the Ferrari behind us, and now I'm on the Cayenne that's outside. This is a brand new Cayenne, that's a 67. There's a point here, so hang with me, right? I'll do this so you can see it. 421, 412, 418, 426. I'm all over this door. You know, 398. We're talking really, really close. Now, if you go back to the Ferrari that's right behind us, it were 17, 26, 23, 21, 16, 15, 12. It was all over the map. And what that means is, think about it. This is a brand new car, came from the factory. They have machines that paint the car. And a machine is not the same as a human being. Machines are actually more precise. You're right? So they're putting almost a perfect amount. I mean, just tiny, tiny, tiny mils different. The car behind us has that big gap. So in my brain, I'm saying, all right, that's indicative that someone probably painted this car. That immediately in my brain goes, there's a lot of clear coat on here. 17, we're talking about 4, 5, 6. That's normal on a new car. On a 67, there's 17, 26. That's a lot, and it's wavy. That means to me, I think somebody repainted this. So I'm gathering all these things, and I'm going to confirm it with the owner, and then I'm going to show you a couple other things that I found that indicate to me that this car has been repainted, which means I approach it differently, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to prove this point here of you got to investigate what you're doing, because if I approached it the same way that I did the 288, we'd run into some issues, especially if I had done this car first and then done this car the same way the 288 would have been destroyed because it was so soft. So you see, everything is in cookie cutter, and this is, I'm kind of excited to share this with you guys because this is just a cool example. So I'm going to show you a few other points that I've run through the car previously and found, okay, my suspicions are right, now we approach it this way. So let's get to this. Now, one of the best places to verify whether a car has been repainted or not is usually the door sills, because there's you know, spots that are missed, and it's really hard to get all the paint in there. But sure enough, I open this door and it looks pretty good. So I'm saying, wow, man, these guys really did what we call rotisserie. They took everything off and put on a rotisserie and spun it and painted it, and it's pretty incredible. But like anything else, there's always a little chip or something, because these doors are, you know, pretty heavy and you got to slam them pretty hard. There's always going to be a little chip, and sure enough, I found one here, and underneath it is blue. So I'm going to pull the camera in right now, and I'll show you. And this is what the owner confirmed to me. So that was kind of cool that we investigated that. So check this out. I'm going to pull this off. 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 I'm going to pull this o See that spot right there? I pull you in, focus you, look at that. Right there. See the little blue? Forget about the white. That's even underneath the blue. That's, I don't know what that is, but right there, blue. So I asked the owner, and he said, yeah, this car had been repainted. So it kind of makes sense to me now why there's so much clear coat on there. And because it's relatively modern, what that's going to mean is there's not going to be any paint transfer like we did on the 288 back there. So that means I can approach it differently. It's not going to be as soft. So we're going to be able to use a different machine. We're going to talk about which machine we're going to use, not the DA from Garreau's, which is an amazing machine. We're going to talk about something else. Now I'm going to show you something on the inside of the car. One last thing to confirm that the car had been repainted. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to pull this slider, which is like a little vent. We're going to see inside the side of this vent that there's a little bit of overspray of red. So one last confirmation. So let me move the inside. And when I was playing around, I pulled this open gently, right there. See now, this is the outside, and this is a vent. And I'll pull you in. And see that little spot right there? It's actually on both sides. You know, this is the driver's side and the passenger side, which indicates to me when they were spraying it, see how it's kind of on the vents? So they didn't mask it off that right. So again, confirmation this car had been repainted, which is pretty cool. But nonetheless, I approach it much differently. Finished the long assessment. I did that for a lot of you guys that emailed me and are as crazy and nerdy as I am, so hopefully I give you a little perspective. I mean, that was a very short version of what I do just to inspect it and figure out where we are. I pulled it outside now. The car has a light layer of dust on it, and some, because he's driven it, there's bugs on it, so we need to wash it, and I'm going to show you how to wash a car that's this sensitive, and it's long and it's kind of tedious, but you sort of need to do it on something that's, you know, a couple $1 million. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to approach on 2 steps on how to do these wheels that are kind of famous wheel. These are Borini wire wheels, kind of cool. I'll show you the first step, and then we're going to wash the car, and then I'll show you the second step with the steamer, because steam is really great on these wire spokes here, because you'll be here all day. So first thing I want to show you is what I do, and I have the water running right now, so I'm holding it, is I take, when I'm doing a car like this, you're not going to power wash it. It doesn't make any sense because 1, it's not that dirty, and 2, you know, it's sensitive, and for all the obvious reasons. So what I use is a hose, but I actually don't use it with a spigot like I normally would, you know, the new car, the Cayenne behind you. I cut off the rubber and, you know, the metal part of it, so there's just rubber. So in theory, God forbid I make a mistake, I'm not actually going to scratch anything because it's all rubber. And then I just use my finger. It's kind of like a little technique, what I call my fail-safe. Just, man, I'd feel really bad if I made a stupid mistake like scratching the car because, you know, the metal there, and I don't really need it, and I don't really need a whole lot of pressure. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my little special hose, which obviously I have one that I have a spigot on. This is just my special hose. And I'm going to rinse it down. Now I actually have pretty warm water here, and a lot of the junk is coming off. Now on a side note, one of the tricks is you pinch it and you can wedge it underneath the tire like this. There you go. And it should be halfway decent. All right, and then I'm gonna take my wheel cleaner, whatever wheel cleaner you're comfortable with. I have wheel soap in here, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm gonna get it pretty good in there just because there's so many little intricate areas. So you can see I'm spraying direct on and then underneath and to the side, just specifically because there's so much surface area here. So we're going to do that and then wash it in our normal fashion. I normally wouldn't put this much on there, but it is saving me a little bit of work because there's so much, you know, surface area, like I said, with these little brushes, little wire wheels. The big thing is I take my brush and I'm very gently getting in there and working the cleaner in and kind of letting it do its thing. Man, it's really turning purple. Letting it do its thing here. But as you can see, the cleaner is safe, and this wheel is probably more than my car. So I wouldn't be doing it if it was going to be dangerous. So let me get to this, and I'll take a video of it afterwards. I wanted to show you specifically what I did on the 288, because that paint was really soft when it comes to washing it. Now this, of course, has bugs on it and needs to be washed, and as we found out, it is a little bit harder, so I can get away with a little bit more, but I'm still going to show you because, again, I know this video, we're going to probably split this into 2 videos, but you really want to know what I did before I did all the polishing, because, again, polishing is very sexy and cool, and we shoot a lot of videos on that. But what I'm doing here is I have 4 super clean towels, right? I have Great Guard clean bucket. I'm going to put them in this bucket. I have you know, my foam soap. Again, use whatever soap you feel comfortable with. And we're going to do this. We're going to put a little bit, a couple squirts, probably a little bit extra, because what I like to do, and then you're going to fill it up, and I'll keep yapping while I'm filling it up. What I like to do on cars that are either black or, you know, in the couple of $1 million range, is wash them a particular way, just so there's no chance of having any scratches. And this is, you know, remember my last one with the foam gun? I like using that method on my more everyday cars that are going to get beaten and go, you know, quick type of thing. It's very, very safe. This is another level of safe. It takes a long time. It's kind of a pain in the butt. There's another really nice guy out there, Gary Dean, that does this for the no water method, which is pretty cool too. And he seems like he knows what he's doing. He seems like a nice guy too. But so here it is. I'm just going to do this little section. It is a little bright outside. I had to pull it out so we can get it on camera. It's a little dark inside the shop there, but I'm only going to do this section, then pull it in, because again, it's too sunny. So I'm going to rinse it down, and again, I have my little flow here it's safe with my hose, right? Just going to do this little section. That's about all I'm going to rinse it down. Now, mind you, I'd probably start from the top, but we're not going to do that right now. So I'm going to take my towel. See, it's nice and soapy. I have it into 4s, right? Got a ton of soap on there, and I'm just going to go sort of one direction, flip it over, the next direction, and you can flip towels. Now I'm keeping an eye on this, and I'm looking, and you can also have a second bucket if you want to get crazy, but this car really isn't that dirty. And I'm just barely touching the surface of the paint, and I'm looking in. You can see there's almost next to nothing on there. Now as I get lower on the panels, it's going to get a little bit more dirty, and I'll run through the towels. 4 should be more than enough here, but as you can see, there's really nothing, not a whole lot of dirt going on, but it certainly ensures a very clean surface in between the paint and of course the towel. So I'm going to run through this whole car and do that, not in the sun because I don't like it sitting here, but I'll rinse it down, dry it with hydrate, and then we can get ready for the polishing stage. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of what I did to prepare the 288 to get polished. In the second video, we'll go over all the polishing, and I'll show you my new detailer's eye video, but this is kind of a quick little version of what I'm doing. And you know, I can use the foam gun, and I certainly encourage people to do that when you're using, you know, on your BRZ or your, you know, your Civic or your whatever you're doing. But when you're working on a car that's like, you know, only a few in the world, sometimes I use a technique like this, and sometimes, especially if it's soft or black paint. Make sense?
It's on 4.5. One of the things with the roots I want to explain is when you're doing this, when you start it, if you put down too much pressure, it has trouble because it wants to throw in opposite directions. So what I do is I lift up a little bit, just slightly, not a lot, it's still touching the paint, and then put the pressure down. So here we go.